Symptoms: embarrassing, repetitive, anger, disorder, shame, diagnosis, guilt, childhood, confused, communication, uttered, denial, developmental, disappointment, restricted, autism-free. Autism Talks is a discussion about the other side of autism, the caretaker's side from a parent's perspective of life before diagnosis and life after. Autism Talks is real people, real candid, real informative. I'm your guest host, Bobby Norfolk, and today I want to introduce you to the creator of Autism Talks, Korey Johnson, and his story. Korey is a special young man who understands the hardships of sons growing up without full-time fathers. It was for that reason that Korey dreamed of one day having a son that he could give him what he wished he had. That day came, and like most new parents, Korey greeted the arrival of his new child with the fleet-footed dreams of the future and life before diagnosis.
As a child, growing up, I didn't have a father figure full-time. So therefore, it was very difficult, growing up without a father. It's pretty difficult, but I decided then that once I decided to have children, especially if I had a boy, that I would make sure that I was there. Being a good father is important to me. It's important on so many levels because having the absence of a father, it really messes with you as a young man. You're really kind of lost. You really don't know the do's and don'ts. You have to go through kind of searching on your own of a lot of things. It's very difficult as a young man coming into manhood without that peace. And I didn't want my son to have to go through these things. I wanted him to be able to relay everything, all the actual things that I messed up on, my mistakes, and I can make sure that he doesn't make these same mistakes. And share things with him, such as playing basketball, anything that he would like to do. I wanted to make sure that I was there every moment I could be. So on June 18, 2007, I was blessed to have a baby boy, Mr. Korey Johnson. And that day is a day I'll never forget because Korey that day was actually born with high bilirubin levels. I wanted him home. His mom wanted him home, I wanted him home, and that day finally came. It was a week later, and Korey was home. And it was a really great feeling to actually have him home. We had been through a lot as far as the high-risk pregnancy. Now I can actually bond with my son. It was a great time. Everything at that point was going smoothly up until about 2 years old. And about 2 years old, started noticing little things that wasn't normal, what we would call quote unquote normal activity for a 2-year-old. Started noticing, of course, the running, the tippy toes, the high-pitched sounds a little bit, which I was, I guess I was in denial then, I know, but at that point I didn't want to hear that because I was just thinking that every child actually grew at a different rate than every other child. There were some 2-year-olds that were saying words, counting, stuff like that, and my son really wasn't at that point in time. He was doing some things that most 2-year-olds weren't doing at that time, but I put that as that my child is, this is what kids do. I wanted him to grow to who he was, and I didn't really want to put a label. And at that time, I wasn't going to put a label on him. I kind of let it go on for a while, by 3, it got a little better, but it didn't. And I think I was more so in denial at this point of really accepting the fact that something may be wrong, I always chalked it up as that my son will come to when he's ready. Every child doesn't develop the same. I found a lot of excuses to hide my pain and how maybe something is really wrong,
Korey started with so many preconceived notions, yet something was wrong. His child wasn't progressing as expected. Had the gods altered the plan without conferring with Korey? With his dreams shattering, Korey found himself in a dark place floating down the river of denial to diagnosis.
And in October, I took him in to get his shots, get his, regular shots or whatever. And I had discussed with the doctor then, and I had concerns. This was very difficult for me to even talk about with a medical professional because I was still kind of in denial, but I knew something had to change. I did not want to I didn't want to have this feeling no more. I wanted some clarity at that point. I wanted him to get the help that he possibly needed. And I wanted to let my guard down and be vulnerable with this doctor and tell her about how and what I'm seeing and how it's not right. Something's wrong. And when I discussed it with her, I asked her, is there something, wrong, or do I need to have concern? So we discussed getting him evaluated, through the school system. At this point in time, it's a special school district, and getting him a Dial 9 test, which every district has a different test that they go about testing students, children, and their ability to see where they are and stuff like that. And it was in October, they let them run through almost a whole quarter to finally give the diagnosis of ASD, which is autism spectrum disorder. And, by the time of when she had said that, I kind of already knew that this was coming, this was going to be said that day. So that very day, leaving that doctor's office was a very long ride home. And a lot of things were going through my head. A lot of things. When you're having a son, you think about all the things that you're gonna share. Whether it be sports, whether it be anything that kind of crushed all of that. Kind of put me in a space of, it ain't gonna happen. That was difficult. Very.
In life, there comes a time when we all discover that nightmares are dreams too. Crushed, Korey found himself facing his greatest fears, but he set out to find that light at the end of the tunnel in life after diagnosis.
And so, as all these transitions were going on, it wasn't until I actually opened up to my grandmother about the situation, about what was going on. And from that talk I had with my grandmother, I wound up talking with other people about it, talking with them and opening up a little bit about my son and the situation that was going on. And as I was to talk more about it, the more and more it started to chip away at the anger and frustration. It started to chip away at all of this stuff. And so as I started doing that, I started seeing my relationship with my son and my relationship with all of, in other areas too, they were getting better. That night I started writing. I started writing the story out from beginning to end. That night, I stayed up till about 2 o'clock in the morning, and at the very end of that, I felt great. I felt even better. It was probably at that point I started realizing that I'm sure there's more people out here that have, especially men, who don't talk about it, who have children with disabilities as well as autism that hold all this this anger of why me, and I hate the world and all this stuff. And even doing when I had my emotions and all of that, I never did blame anybody. I wasn't mad at God. I wasn't mad at his mom. She didn't do anything wrong. I was just more so not disgusted, but just disappointed, because you look so forward to doing something with your son, and you would think that at that point it's shattered, and that's not true. Whether it be ASD or any other disability or anything, I'm just glad he's here and he's mine, and therefore he's helped me become a better person and a better father, and just overall just understanding this ASD and autism and how it affects people and families. And so with that being said, I would like to help others deal with this situation, because I know, and like I said before, it's a lot of people men that are dealing with this and have all these mixed emotions and anger and frustrations and all of that. But I'm telling you, there is hope. It's a big bright light at the end. You know, it's beautiful once you get to that point of accepting the things you cannot change. And once you get there, you're able to talk freely about it. You're able to express yourself. You're able to not be embarrassed, or not be able, not when you go out somewhere, you feel embarrassed because your son is yelling and screaming. You don't feel embarrassed anymore, because you've embraced the fact of this is who he is. This is him. And I love him. So therefore, any way I can possibly help him be better, I will. It's a beautiful thing to grasp that energy that's there. I wouldn't trade it for nothing in the world.
Once Korey decided to accept the things he could not change and started talking openly about his emotions and inner thoughts, he was finally able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. That light turned out to be his son.
What I've learned by me talking and me expressing myself through even that essay, and even through talking with people about it, that burden is lifted. And now it's like my relationship with my son has exploded. All those things that I thought that my son wouldn't be able to do, my son is doing. The relationship that I thought I wasn't gonna have, it's even better. It's not what you would call normal, but who is normal? What do we really consider normal, And with that, I've learned to embrace things that I cannot change. And with the things that I can't change, it's kind of like when people are throwing lemons, they make lemonade out of it. And this is a situation in which I've been throwing lemons. At one point in time, is what I felt. But nah, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm glad that happened to me and nobody else. I'm glad that he's in my life. I'm glad that I have him as my son.
If you want to tell us your story, get in touch with us at KoreyJohnsonFoundation.com. Remember, it only works if you get involved.